The strange disappearance of Brandon Swanson. Let me take you back to a quiet stretch of rural Minnesota. Flat farmland, scattered small towns, and narrow gravel roads that wind through empty fields and riverbeds. The kind of place that feels endless under the stars, where the darkness swallows everything past the reach of your headlights. It was in this kind of place that 19-year-old Brandon Swanson disappeared without a trace, and no one has ever seen or heard from him since. This isn't just a missing person case. It's a story that's filled with disturbing inconsistencies, eerie coincidences, and one final sentence before silence. Brandon's story begins on the night of May 13th, 2008. He had just finished up his first year at Minnesota West Community and Technical College in Canby. It was a small school in southwestern Minnesota, about a half-hour drive from his hometown of Marshall. That night, he attended two small get-togethers, first in Canby and then later in nearby Lind, with friends to celebrate the end of the semester. Nothing wild, just normal, low-key fun. Around 1:15 a.m., Brandon got into his green Chevy Lumina and started driving home. The roads in this part of Minnesota are rural and unlit. Gravel roads cut through long, flat fields. At night, you can't see more than your headlights allow, and it's easy to get turned around, especially if you miss a sign or veer slightly off course. At some point of his drive, Brandon's car went off of the road and into a shallow ditch. He wasn't hurt, and the car wasn't damaged, but he couldn't get back on the road. After a few attempts, he'd given up and called his parents. Now this is where things get strange. He told them he believed he was near Lind, a tiny small town just south of Marshall. He asked his parents to come and pick him up. So his father, Brian, got dressed, got in the family truck, and began heading toward Lind. All the while, Brandon stayed on the phone with his parents. His mother took the call for the first few minutes and then passed the phone to his dad. The conversation had lasted 47 minutes in total. It was long, but mostly uneventful. Brandon sounded frustrated at the time, but never panicked. He explained that he was walking toward the light of what he thought was Lind. He could see them off in the distance, and told his father to meet him at the edge of town. Brian drove to the area where Brandon claimed he was, but saw no sign of him. They flashed their headlights at each other, hoping to catch a glimpse, but neither one ever saw the other. Nearly 45 minutes into the call, Brandon suddenly interrupted the conversation with a sharp and startled, "Oh shit." Then the line went silent. The call didn't disconnect. There was no click, no fading out, just silence. Brian kept the line open for a few moments and then tried to call back. No answer. They tried again and again, over and over, and nothing. At first, Brandon's parents thought maybe he'd lost signal or his phone battery had died, but they knew something was off. By morning, when Brandon still hadn't returned home or made contact, they went to the police. And here's the next unsettling part of the story. When the Swansons first approached law enforcement, they were told, like far too many other families of missing adults, that Brandon was an adult and he had the right to disappear if he wanted to. It would take several more hours before authorities agreed to help search for him. Later that day, police found Brandon's car, but it wasn't anywhere near Lind. In fact, it was about 25 miles northwest, near the town of Taunton, way off where Brandon said he was. The car was located along the side of a gravel road in Lincoln County, just north of Highway 68, west of Porter. It wasn't damaged or crashed. It was just stuck. This immediately changed the scope of the investigation. Brandon had been completely disoriented that night. He believed he was walking toward Lind, but he was walking in the exact opposite direction. What's more crazy? Cell phone records showed that Brandon had made a call to his parents that had pinged off a tower near the town of Minneota, even further northwest than Lind. Searchers now had a new area to focus on. Trained dogs were brought in. They traced Brandon's scent from his abandoned car down a gravel road and then across fields, finally along the banks of the Yellow Medicine River. It was clear that he had been walking on foot for some time. The dogs followed his scent all the way to the riverbank, and then, eerily, the trail has just stopped. This led some to believe that Brandon may have fallen into the river and drowned. But this theory has never fully held up. The river at that time was shallow, only knee-deep in most areas, and it wasn't flowing very fast. Dive teams searched the river thoroughly. No body, no clothes, no phone, nothing. You'd think after 17 years, some traces would have been found. Bones, a phone, articles of clothing. But the search has turned up absolutely nothing, as if Brandon Swanson simply vanished from the earth. Over the years, multiple theories have been floated out there. The most logical explanation is that Brandon got lost in the dark and succumbed to the elements, either by falling into the river, getting injured, or dying from exposure. But still, no remains have ever been found. Some believe he encountered foul play. A person driving by could have seen him walking alone on the side of the road in the middle of the night. But this is farm country. Most roads are rarely traveled after midnight, and there were no reports of sightings of Brandon that night. Others suggest something more sinister. There's an almost paranormal tone that creeps into this story the longer you think about it. A young man, walking alone at night through pitch-black farmland, talking calmly with his dad for almost an hour, and then he sees something, and we don't know what, and just says, "Oh shit," and then he's never seen again. What did he see? Was it an animal? Another person? A vehicle approaching fast? Was it something darker? Something we can't explain? That final moment has haunted his parents and investigators for years. It's not just that he vanished, it's how he vanished. Let's go back to that 47-minute call. Brandon never said he was scared, never mentioned another car or person. He never hinted that he was in imminent danger. He was just trying to meet with his father, focused on getting to the lights of what he thought was Lind. He even laughed a few times. He sounded okay. And then, he didn't. Some people wonder if he'd fell, like down a slope or perhaps into an abandoned well. But again, that area has been combed many times by volunteers, police, cadaver dogs. No one has found a trace. The trail just ends. Since his disappearance, Brandon's parents, Brian and Annette Swanson, have fought to keep his case alive. They've become more vocal advocates for missing people, especially young adults, who often get dismissed by law enforcement in the early hours of disappearance. Thanks to their efforts, Minnesota actually passed a, in quotes, Brandon's Law in 2009. It requires police to file a missing persons report as soon as somebody is reported missing, regardless of their age, and to begin a prompt investigation. The law was a victory, but Brandon's still gone. Every few years, search teams return to that field around Porter and Taunton. New leads are chased and new areas are searched, but the land doesn't give up its secrets. In 2023, the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office publicly stated that the case is still open, and they continue to follow up on any credible leads. His disappearance remains one of the most baffling unsolved cases in the Midwest. So here we are, nearly 2 decades later, and the mystery remains. What happened to Brandon Swanson? Why did he think he was near Lind when he was nearly 30 miles away? And what did he see in those final seconds that made him go silent? Was it an accident? Was it foul play? Or was it something else entirely? We may never know, but one thing's for certain. Brandon's final words still echo through the darkness of that Minnesota night.